If you'll please be seated. Now we'll have the sermonette message by Mr. Dave Fremo.
Well, greetings, friends, wherever you all may be. I'm sure that most of the people that are listening here today would be very glad to have the weather we're having here today. I have 3 questions for you today. How much do you appreciate what you have? How much do you need to feel blessed? And the title of this message, How Much is Enough? Recently, I read a small book by Robert Hastings called A Nickel's Worth of Skim Milk, A Boy's View of the Great Depression. His dad was primarily a miner in southern Illinois, and gradually all the coal mines closed. He never had enough milk, which he really craved. He said he rarely felt self-pity, but one morning he broke the 10th commandment. He stopped at a friend's house on the way to school. Big yellow bananas filled the bowl, and almost a whole quart of fresh, cold milk from the dairy sat on the table. It didn't seem fair for his friend to have nearly a whole quart left over, and he'd gagged on condensed milk. But one winter day, the Marion City Dairy made the most fabulous offer that anyone could possibly imagine. For 5 cents, 1 nickel, you could get a whole bucket of skim milk. Any size bucket. So, he went off to the dairy with a nickel in one hand and a water bucket in the other hand, and stood in a long line waiting for that precious liquid. One summer, he wasn't getting enough nourishment. So he got a pint of milk for supper each night. And much later, he found out he could work his way through college. So each weekend, his mother sent him off to college with an orange and a boiled egg, which would keep without refrigeration until Friday. That was his breakfast for 5 days, was 1 boiled egg and 1 orange. But he never felt deprived. He felt greatly blessed to be able to attend college. They did without a lot of things in the 30s. When the mine closed, his dad went without a steady income for 8 years. So they did without most of what was their former way of life. They stopped the newspaper, city water, ice and milk deliveries, use of the car, gas range except in the 3 summer months, and house payments. They owed $1,250 on their house and couldn't make the payments. But the bank went bankrupt, and the creditors would take almost anything. They were able to borrow $125 from an aunt and pay it off. Many good houses sold from $5 to $100. They did without toothpaste, toilet paper, reopened the outhouse, magazines, soft drinks, chips and snacks, bakery goods except bread, restaurant meals, clothes cleaning, and a bank account. Convenience or frozen foods, vitamins, Band-Aids, Kleenex, paper towels, garbage pickup, TV, cell phones, and all of those things that we take for granted now were unknown then. But if they'd had them, they would have given them up as well. They kept electric bill to $1 per month and the gas bill in the summer to $1 per month. Electricity was for the iron and for one light bulb per room, and only one light bulb at a time. More than one thing cooked on a burner at a time or in the oven at a time. They would patch their own shoes or add cardboard inside. Clothing and paper were used and reused until there was nothing left. School books were bought, used, and entertainment was anything free. His mother put bread aside each Sunday for the school lunches. Everything was intermittent: work, welfare, surplus food. They raised a garden, gathered wild greens and fruit, canned or worked on shares. They had a few chickens for themselves and to pay bills or gifts, like to the minister for his brother's funeral. And they had family, friends, and neighbors. His father took whatever work he could find, and they shared and helped one another. They got by with a lot less than they were used to, which is a great deal less than most of us take for granted. The question is, what would be our attitude if we found ourselves in such a situation today? Would we still thank God for our many blessings, or complain bitterly at having so little to live on? What do we do now? Most of us have so much good stuff that they didn't even dream of. Do we thank God for it, or do we complain? You know, thankfulness is the only thing we can give God. He owns everything else. Do we really think God should bless us more, even if we complain about almost every good gift he gives us? Ecclesiastes 5. Ecclesiastes 5 and verse 10 says, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase." Some of you know I have spent much of my time away from home working. And while in Kennewick, I stay in a 6x8 box on wheels. Sometimes it leaks and shakes in the wind. But so far it hasn't blown over, and I'm thankful for that. As Colossians 3:15 says we should be. I have a fan to cool it in summer down to the 80s most nights, if I don't cook much, and a little space heater for the winter. I have light, had a little fridge, but it quit, a hot plate, a little bed, and even had a TV for a while, and the use of the bath and the fridge in the house. In Hoquiam, where I've also worked a lot, I stayed in a recently vacated old apartment house, which has many problems. At the feast, the first year with Pacific, I stayed in my van with a little less convenience. The next year, I was blessed to have a basement. Is it not enough? Why should I complain? Hebrews 13, first part of verse 5 says, "Let your conduct be without covetousness, and be content with such things as you have." We are to be content in whatever state we find ourselves. We pray for the kingdom to come, as well we should, but much worse times must come first. Will we be thankful for whatever we have, or will we blame God for our poverty? What are we to do? Ephesians 5:20 says, "Giving thanks always for all things." Are you thankful for your health? How about brethren? Place to attend, a job or customers, fresh, healthy food, clean and abundant water, eyes that can see God's creation, the ability to smell, adequate clothing. Many people are thankful to have a change of clothing so they can wash one while wearing the other. We have closets full of clothes that we seldom, if ever, wear. Most have a nice vehicle to drive. And the understanding of God's way of life. God can take all this and more away. Are we thankful for what we have now? Will we be thankful that we had it for a while once they're gone? It's so easy to see only the problems with what we have or those around us. But would we be really better off without them? Like teeth. They have many problems, but they're awfully nice to have. And the old saying, I complained because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. You know, I could complain about my bad toenails. But I recently talked with a lady that has no toenails. They were all yanked out by the Japanese for pleasure when she was an 8-year-old prisoner of war. How tiny are most of our problems compared to most of the world? We should be the most thankful people on earth, but we may be the least. 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6, we'll begin in verse 6. But godliness and contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. The following is from the closing thoughts from a nickel's worth of skim milk. In the summer of 1971, he took one of his daughters to a large campus for orientation and Parents' Day. They stayed in one of the campus residences to give the students a sampling of dormitory life and food. What got next to him, he said, was the available drinks. There was whole milk, skim milk, chocolate milk, hot chocolate, coffee, iced tea, hot tea, grapeade, and 4 choices of soft drinks. That adds up to 12. Some boys took 3 glasses of milk at a time, but you could go back as often as you wanted and get more of anything. Some enterprising soul on campus was really pushing many refrigerators. After all, if you only have 12 choices of drinks and that only 3 times a day, you need additional refreshment in your room. He blinked back 2 big tears. He really couldn't help it, and he was too embarrassed to use an handkerchief. For he saw that lonely pint of milk on the supper table in Marion, the line of customers at the Marion City Dairy, and the orange and boiled egg breakfast at Carbondale College. He thought there ought to be a happy medium with kids starving and all. Now, he said, I've gone and said more than I should have. I just wanted to say that when I was 10, I came home one day with a big bucket of skim milk topped with a thin skiff of ice, and it sure was good.